Okay, glad to see Anna and Mason. Glad to have you both here. I see Jenny as well. Good to see all of you. And I'm gonna mute this here for a minute, and then we'll get started. And I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I think we're ready to go. I just some housekeeping things I want to mention. First of all, we're in week 12, and obviously, hi there. We have some work that's due, okay, for this week, and we've been working ahead, just basically banking these because we're moving into flex time and the finals and all that. I've talked about that about a jillion times. So you should have each of these uploaded, Access 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we worked on access case number 5. So today we're going to work on access case number 6. There are a couple of other cases also in the Lambert text, and that's the text on Microsoft Access. And you have two cases in the zip files there. One is Garden 12 and the other is Garden 13. And these walk you through how to set up a password for a database, how to protect it, how to split it, a database if you care to do that, and also just some maintenance kinds of things, which I think are fine for you to take a look at, and the textbook will walk you through each of those steps. And then as far as chapter 13, take a look over there. And 13 is talking about trying to work in Access a lot more efficiently, like changing default program options. So these last two chapters are more maintenance and those types of issues. Things like customizing the ribbon, for example, manipulating it. Those are things that are okay. And I think it would be worth your time to take a look at them, but I wouldn't put a tremendous amount of stock in them for the simple reason that when you go out to work, somebody will have made these decisions for you based upon whatever platform that you're using. But the basic point of the two chapters is for you to see the kinds of things that you can do to customize and to protect your database. The database splitter is just simply a process where you create a link to the mothership, if you will, and so you have a view of an entire database, just not say the view of a table that you would get with a query. Now, what I'm more interested in, what I think will be more beneficial for you today, will be to work on access case number 6, and that one you're going to find it over here in the welcome area. Or in the first module, and here it is. And it's going to be, there it is, ACCDB 6 done, spring 15. As I told you, these are old cases. I've worked them and reworked them and played around with them, and so this is kind of the current iteration of where I'm at with it. This involves a music company, and we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to link tables, which is a pretty easy process to do. We'll see how that's done. It's not that big of a deal. And then we're also going to take a look at some queries, and again, do some more analysis of developing tables. So that's where we are. Now, just to make sure that we're all kind of dialed into what's going on. We're at week 12, okay? And you've got these assignments to upload. And then week 13 is a flex time. If you click on that, you're not going to see anything because I'm giving you that week to work on the big projects that I've got for you to do, as well as your finals. If you're smart, you'll work ahead. That's what I hope you'll do. Now, let me walk you through some of these, and next week, or probably on Thursday, I'll spend some more time on them. One of these is a spatial. I'm going to have you do some work with spatial analysis using some pretty simple tools and applications that are out there for free, things like Google Maps. You'll be using that. Then I've got instructions on the Davenport text. I'm going to have you create a self-developed quiz, okay? And then you'll move into finals week, and you'll have work that's due at the start of the final exam period. If you've had classes with me before, you know that I divide the first part of stuff that's due at the start of the final exam period. It's typically projects, things of that nature, okay? And then the stuff that's due at the end of the final exam period is typically quizzes, things like that. And I've got those set up for you, and I also have the time when the final exams are due. Now, I get these, here are the questions I typically get, so let me run through them. Can I do all of this before finals? Yes. It's there, loaded, ready for you to do. Will I issue a score or anything like that? No. I learned a long time ago, sometimes I'd have groups of students that would choose a sacrificial lamb, and I'd mark it all up, and then everybody else, would come in with perfect. So I just basically said, when your work is due, then I start grading it. Or I grade it on a rolling basis, but once it's due, I'll start to post the scores and my comments and that type of thing. So can you work ahead? Absolutely, positively. What if I'm say off campus and I'm working on the finals week and something goes wrong? I have a statement up there here at the start of the course that if you're off the system, you're on your own, okay? So if you're home or you're somewhere else, that's your issue. I've got this all set up so that those kinds of problems can be cut off at the pass. You say, are you telling me it's better for me to maybe work on the OBU system and use it? Yes, because if something happens, then I've got somebody to go talk to about finding out why your file didn't upload or the internet went out or whatever. But if you're somewhere else, that's another issue. Now, I don't impose this during the regular class weeks, but I do during finals because there's so many points at stake. So you say, well, where will you be at 8 o'clock on Wednesday the 15th of May? I will be over in my office, okay? And folks will be uploading their files, doing whatever they're going to do. And I'll probably be grading the remainder of the projects and things of that nature that I ask you to do, like with the exam part 1 or the spatial analysis or the self-developed quiz that I'm going to ask you to work with. Just as we're coming down to this point, and I want to just reiterate it one more time. When I give you the flex time, just as I've done with the course in terms of its format, I'm putting a lot of pressure on you to see if you can be self-managed and if you can have some individual initiative. These are the kinds of things an employer is going to ask you for. So there's a lot more that goes on in my courses than meets the eye, and they're deceptively easy because they give you that freedom of time. Some of you probably experienced this when you went away from home for the first time and you found out you could sleep, you could stay up till 3 in the morning. I did that for the first 3 weeks, and then I learned that the human body needs sleep and rest, and so I started to regulate my time a lot better, and I started finding out that classes were actually happening, etc. So I've thrown this piece in here to really test you and see if you are self-managed, and if you're not, this will get an opportunity for you to go, boy, I'm maybe not good at managing my time. And if you're tired of hearing about time management, I know Dr. Rubach talks about it, and probably some others. All I can tell you is from here on out, life is going to be a blur. You're going to have families, jobs, you'll end up with kids, then you'll have kids who have kids, and the fun really begins. So get ready for juggling a lot of competing priorities and having a lot of time long days. That's just life. If you're going to, there's an old adage or kind of an old saying, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. There's a lot of truth in that. And most of you, as I've clocked you in terms of what you're doing in Canvas, you're doing a good job of that. So you're to be commended. I'm pretty pleased with what I've seen in terms of folks logging in, doing their work, etc. Canvas gives me a complete overview of every single person and what they do, how much time you spend in it, how many pages you view, everything. And so I keep data and I track from one semester to the next in a given course how people are doing. You guys are doing pretty well so far, so I'm happy about that. Now, let's take a look, and you should have that case number 6, and it's called Uber Audio number 1. And I think I've got Uber Audio in here somewhere. I stuck it here. Here. Before we start, here's Garden Company. Here's Garden Company 12, Garden Company 13, and let me see if I can find that one. I thought I had it out here for myself ready to go this morning, but I may not have. Oh, here it is. That's 3. So I'll just download the file. I'll go back up here into the very first module, and we've got that. It's going to be ACCBD 6 done, and you'll need to download it. And we're going to do a little more work with tables and some other kinds of things. Okay, I'm going to enable the content. I'm going to save the file on my desktop as an access database. And this is where I'm going to call it Harmon. And I'll put it over on the desktop and save it. Okay. All right. Now, as I mentioned earlier, if you take a look at the Lambert text, the database, that database text, chapters 12 and 13 will walk you through protecting a database, things like assigning it a password, splitting a database, database maintenance, more efficient or effective ways to use it, etc. And so that's a piece that I think it would be good for you to do it just to kind of get an idea of what goes on behind the scenes, what will be going on behind the scenes when you're at work. Now, this database, okay, this Uber marketing database, let's take a look at it and talk a little bit about some of the elements that I've got in here, okay? One of them is a dashboard. If you've got it open, you'll see you've got some actions that you can execute. Now, you can create a dashboard by taking a form and putting it into design view and then adding commands and actions and going from there. And it's a pretty simple process. Lambert covers it some, and it's really a little bit beyond this course. But basically, it's not too different than it's really not different than what we did when we had the Excel case, when we had those vendors and we created macros. So let's take a look at this form for a minute. Now, the form in this or little dashboard should be related to what we would call key performance indicators, or maybe some key tasks. Let's look at it. Add a new customer, okay. Add a new company, okay. Produce a mailing list, okay. Exit the system. So we've got some choices there that we can do. And these are going to be tasks that we typically do on a regular basis. We might do it every week. We might do them every day. It's going to depend upon what we call the query discipline or the query or the calendar that's developed in terms of what queries we run, what data we extract, etc. And as I've mentioned before, some of the folks I work with, it's hard to get them to understand. If you'll get this all organized in terms of when you run queries and what you're after, you'll find that you'll get a lot better information, and you'll start to impose some discipline on the process. And with a church, for example, heavy data input day should be on a Monday. Why? Well, you had church on Sunday. And then an output day should be whatever day during the rest of the week that, say, the ministerial staff chooses to have a meeting. And so you should have those data and those reports. How many people were here last Sunday? In what life groups? How many people attended the 8:30 service, or say a 10 o'clock service, or an 11 o'clock service, whatever? Okay. Comparisons say, how does this compare versus last month? How does it compare last quarter? How does this compare last year, 5 years ago, whatever? Now I think you can understand, if you know the right questions to ask, then you'll generate the right answers. Take this menu on this menu here, and let's take it and right click and go to the layout view, and we'll start with it. Okay, and the layout view is just where I work with objects and I resize them. I can edit the text, etc. Okay, it's just design stuff. Now let's click here on the design view, and this is more of what it would look like if you went over and took a course, for example, over on web design, over with Corey, you'd find this is pretty much the template. All the little dots, the lines, this is so you can put everything in here, and so it's precise and it looks pretty. It's all lined up as it should be, etc. Okay, so that's why you have that backdrop. Now, when you're in the design view, okay, you can do some things on the design. You can add labels. You can create a text box, what we call an unbound text box. You can create a label. Here is a command button, and let's press on it for just a minute. And we'll come over here, and I'm just to the right. I'm going to put in this command, and you'll get the command button wizard. Okay? Now, what you'll see are a series of things that we can do. We can do record navigation. We can do record operations. We can do form operations, report operations. We can call in an application. There are miscellaneous kinds of things we can do. And record navigation, we'll just do that. We'll press next. It's all menu driven. And we can use a picture or we can use the text. Okay? And this is going to be called Command 5, and we're finished. All right? Now we're going to have to find an object to go open up, but that's just basically it. I don't dwell a whole lot on this type of thing because when you go to work, this will all be here for you, okay? What's important is that you may not know every little detail of the brake system of your Ferrari, but if you know how to drive the Ferrari, you probably won't wrap it around a tree, okay? So there's a point where unless you're going to be a database administrator or a computer scientist or something, that type of information is not useful. It is good for you to take a look under the hood and see it, okay? Because then it allows you to have a good dialogue with the IT specialist or your vendor. You're being trained to be a decision maker, and you want to have some knowledge of this. Now, there's some people who are just naturally curious about it, and they'll get all over it, and that's wonderful. Okay, let's go back up to the form view. Okay, and question. You want to save it as a database? Yeah. Well, as a question is a good one. When I save this, do I save it as an object or a database? You want to save it as a database. Okay, if you save it as an object, well, you're misnaming it. The objects, and I'll show you, it's very easy. The objects are tables, queries, forms, and reports. Objects are things that make up a database or an application. They're parts of a greater whole, is the best way I know to describe it. Now, I don't want to get too far afield with this, but when we talk about objects, this is a term that comes from object-oriented programming. And you say, what are you talking about? Object-oriented programming is how we create icons like the find, okay, or switch windows, or save, or any of these. There's programming developed that creates the icon, okay, that formats it, etc. So what it looks like. Then there's programming on what it does. Now, if there are options to it, for example, I'll click over here on the Create button. The Create button there is an object. Then you have several objects here, some choices of what you can do. There's programming that was designed to not only execute what you want to do, but to provide you a visual cue to do it. That's why Windows was such a revolution in computing, a step ahead, because then you were freed up from doing some basic programming so you could focus your programming skills on finding data, extracting data, analyzing it, and visualizing it. In other words, doing something with it. Before that, you spent a tremendous amount of time just calling data and then putting it in formats that you wanted and all that. Now, every type of commercial database that's out there has these elements. There are people that work down at what we call the machine language level. Those are typically folks who are working on an application and how it interfaces with the machine. And that's way beyond the scope of this course. Now, we've got the we've got this main view, and I can click here and let's add a new customer. And what this does is this takes us to another form, okay, where we can input a customer. And we've talked about forms and why we use them, okay? And let's click on the design view of it. All right, let's see if it's going to give me I'm on the design view. There we go. Now, in design view, we typically have the following kinds of things. A header for the form, a way to identify it. What is this about? To telegraph to the end user. Then we'll typically have in the detail area two kinds of critters. One critter will be the label, okay? The second will be what we call an unbound text box, and that's where we put data, and that's where and that lets us access the data in a given table, record, or wherever we want to. And if you'll notice down here, we have some drop-down menus. And if I'm curious, let's click on that name last and click on it, and we'll go. And you'll notice we can click on that and come up to the very top, and you'll see something called Build Event. Okay. Let's close that off for a moment, and let's go to click Design at the top. All right, and let's click a button. Okay. Now we've got these kinds of navigation that we can do and all this business, and we'll go ahead and finish with that. And then I want to right click it and click Build an Event. All right. Now it's going to say we're going to find a new record. All right. And then we start to move into where we build that event in terms of what we're going to use, what object, like a table or a query or something of that nature. Again, this is a little bit beyond what we want to do. And then if you're finished, you just delete that. You don't need it. Click on click over here on the name last, and this is a label, and you'll see there's stuff for like fill and back color, etc. The textbook, the Lambert text, will show you in some detail how to create a form and how to populate it, work with the design, the controls, and all of that. And it's there for you to learn or to do if you care to. Most of the time, almost 90% of the time, when you're out at work, you'll be interacting with an application. There's just not going to be much you'll be able to improve on it, to be truthful, and you'll be wasting your time. As I said before, you're a decision maker. You say, okay, well, take a look at this. We have add a new customer, okay, add a new company, produce a mailing list, exit the system. These are just some kind of mundane tasks, right? Especially adding customers and companies. We're adding to what we would call the dimensions. We've talked about that, the who, what, when, and where. A mailing list is going to be some kind of a report for us. And we might use that we would generate the mailing list if we want to send everybody a Christmas card or a happy holidays card if we want to be politically correct or any of that stuff. Then we can exit the system if we click on that. Okay? So we'll close this off for a second. And we don't want to do any changes to it. Now let's walk through here and let's start with the way that you analyze or get a look at a database. Again, all the stuff that we can do with Access gives us the same authority and ability to do what a database administrator can do. But the best way for us to understand that person's job and to be able to communicate with them is to kind of see what they deal with or how things operate. So when we click, for example, on the database tools, let's click on that. We're going to see, we've talked about the other day, we can go to Visual Basic. Okay, we can compact and repair the database. We can run a macro, develop and run a macro. If we have one, we can run it. We can click on relationships. Now let's click on that one, and we'll see how the tables are related. And we have two tables here that are related. And this is both of these two tables. They are connected by let's click on it because I'm trying to get these open and they won't open up for me. So they're being naughty. But let's click right there on that line. Okay, and click Edit Relationships. Now, in this Uber A and Uber B, okay, two different tables, they're linked on the basis of organization. So when we go into either of those tables, we're going to find a field called Organization, and where they match is how we have these two tables put together. Now, you'll look at the bottom, you'll see it says the relationship is indeterminate, and that's because we have not assigned a parent or a child key, although a kind of or parent or child table here, because neither one of these is a primary key. So the machine says, well, okay, you say they're linked, great. Let's click on over here where it says Join Type, and you'll see it, okay? And here's an exercise in Boolean logic, okay? Imagine that you have a Venn diagram. You have set A on the left, set B on the right, a couple of circles, and then where they intersect, okay? Now, number one is an inner join, i.e. an intersection, where we only pull up the records where the two tables match on that field. This is why I spoke so much about a primary key, making certain that every record is unique, etc., so that we can link tables and pull data. And then once we have data, we can analyze the data. And then once we've analyzed it, we can visualize it. So that's the process that you're going to be looking at. Now, luckily for you, and unluckily, your job will be typically to either conduct analysis of data and then visualize it, or receive data and interpret it and understand it. So that's why I talk so much about pattern recognition. And the reason that I included the Stephen Few text in the course is quite simple. Just show me the numbers. So you could look at a table, you could understand which type, how do I put data into a visual structure that people can understand and that honestly conveys the data that I've got. Okay? How can I look at data and ascertain if somebody's fudging on it? Or if I compressed it, it's going to look a lot different than if I stretched it out. Or is there a linear trend or any one of those kinds of things that are there? Now, here we're going to take these two and we're going to only include the rows where the join field from both tables are equal, and that is they're from the same organization. Okay? Now, all we have to do if we want to is we just simply join the two tables. All right? And I'm going to delete this. Well, yeah, we'll miss it. No, let's just leave it be. But if I want to create, if I've got two tables, I just simply go into the database tools. Pardon me, I go into database tools, okay? Okay, create. I've got the database tools there. It's been hot for me. I'll click relationships. And then if I have additional tables, I could click show tables. Okay. And we've got this Uber C. Click on that and then click add. Now this is from another case. Okay, and I've got an extra one there, so I'll get rid of it. So we have Uber C. Now, let's look at the fields. We have 3 fields here in Uber C. We have last name, first name, and AHA, organization. So if we wanted, we could link up these 3 tables with organization. And I'm going to take a shot at that. I'm going to take Uber B, okay? And I'm going to come over here and I'll see on my cursor the little positive sign. I'll click, and there's the Edit Relationships dialog box. And I've got them linked on organization, and I'll click Create. And they're all 3 linked now. Since they're linked, I can run queries on them, generate reports with all 3 sets of data, etc. You'll notice that I have some redundancy here in last name, first name, and organization, and that's pretty typical when we have a database that's maybe, or a database that's not normalized would be the best way to put it. Now, we can click on that line, all right, and we'll click Edit Relationship, and we'll see, and we'll click on the Join Type, and there it is. This is how we string on a real primeval, real primitive basis, how we string together 10,000 tables, 15,000 tables, 1,000,000 tables, and then with that tabular data, we run a query, we extract it, and once we extract it, we analyze it, and then we begin to put it into a visual context, like a chart of some type or a graph, and then I start looking for patterns, and patterns that's what we're after. We want to see patterns in transactions, patterns in our customers, patterns in our employees, etc. We're always looking for patterns. So I'll close that off there. And then if I don't care to have that for now, let's just go ahead and click on here. And we'll delete that relationship. Yeah. And we can even hide table C. So we're done with it. Now, again, let's click on the database tools, and then click on the music codes, that very first table, okay? And you'll see the thing called object dependencies. Now, I emphasize this for a reason. When you take your accounting course, if you have an accounting 1 and 2, you're going to learn all about debits, credits, ledgers, journals, and you're going to start to understand that a lot of that field is about how does an economic transaction get recorded? How does it get classified so that we understand what happened? It's a flow. It's the same thing with a database. A database is going to show us the flow of information. And we can do that with the object dependent. We'll click OK. And it's going to pull it up for us. And we should see it pop up over here on the right. Okay. Now, typically what will happen is you won't see something like this. But if you're using a product like SAS Visual Analytics, Oracle, SAS Visual Analytics, Oracle, SAP, SPSS, any of those, you will probably have been given some kind of documentation that walks you through step by step of what's there and how you use it. Oracle's retail, Oracle's, pardon me, is it Oracle? I think it's Oracle or SAS, one of the two, I forget. But I looked the other day, and they have a 430-page guide on how they want their application used, because they want it to work for you and to work properly, and they have enough experience to know. So if you look at this, we see that Uber A isn't really dependent on there are these objects that depend on Uber A, add customer, the customer interests that report, and then a couple of unsupported objects like a query. And then I can click to see objects I depend on, and there are none. So we can start to see the flow of data and remember when we started this, we took a look at Northwind Traders database, and we talked about the idea of a data warehouse, which is multiple databases. And we saw that we had a table or a table that was kind of a junction where a whole lot of different tables were connected into it. That starts to give us some sense of the data flows. Now, I'm going to close it off here for a second, and let's go back to this table itself. And let's click on Home. All right. And let's right-click on the music codes, and we're going to open it up. Okay. This music codes is what we call a dimension table, a slowly changing dimension table. You say, what do you mean? Well, these folks have decided, okay, to assign an ID to different types of music. Because we're going to be looking at the musical interests of these folks that we're selling to. Uber Audio is they're in the music business. I forget what all they do, but they have customers they sell to at different record companies. I think they sell speakers or something like that. I don't remember. But the bottom line is your interest. You want to know what kind of music interests them, because how you tailor your product presentation or the products that you sell them will be targeted that much better. Okay? And so we have this table, and we can use it as a lookup table. And I'm going to close this off. So what do you mean? Well, let's look at Uber A and open that table up. Okay? And here's the name, last name of the person, their first name. Okay? Music interest A, that'd be their first interest. Music interest B, their second interest, and then the organization. Click on Music Interest A, and you'll know here's a drop-down menu. I think we did a little bit of this before when we looked at developing tables, but we use a drop-down menu here as a data integrity device to make sure that we code this musical interest correctly, or we identify it, okay? So we've got their musical interest, A, and it's going to be the same thing with musical interest, B. Okay? This just makes it easier to input the data, and it has a code with it. Now, on Uber A, right-click it and go to the design view. Here's the last name, the first name, music interest A, okay, music interest B, and the organization. Click on music interest A, excuse me, and then come down to field properties and click on lookup, and you'll see the lookup query that we used, okay? Now, when we do this, we run a query for this field, and we draw data from a table to populate the record, so we can so we know what category, etc. And that's really all. It's really all that's going on. I'm going to try something here, and well, let's look at this, okay? I'm just going to walk you through the process because it's already done here. Yeah, and we go into the lookup. We typically would select a combo box, then the row source type, and it's going to be a table or a query, and then the row source, okay? And click on that, and it will show you the query that we run to populate that field. That's how we create a drop-down menu, and that's how we control input into a table, okay? And you can see the music codes, and you'll notice that we've got the music interest, and we get the music ID, okay? And then we got the music ID from the music codes, and we've got and we don't display it, okay? We've got it suppressed, but we've got these two, okay? And we'll go back up to the view, and it will show us this, and we can close that off, and we're right back to the table design view. Now we come down here, and we have some other formatting things. We have a bound column. We have one bound column, and within it we have two columns. We don't have any headings for them, and then notice here they have a column width. I think I probably inserted where I came up with that number, I thought probably was the best size. And then we have 16 rows, and then we have a width for it. We do the same thing with music interest B. Now, organization probably is one that we could use. Let's go up here to the data sheet view, okay? And we'll say the table right, and we got the organization. Now, I don't know who DR is or any of these people, okay? What does that mean? Who is DR, TLA, TWM, AR? I guess probably AR is probably Atlantic Records, EMI, the recording company. Without something that identifies them for me, I got trouble. So I'm going to go over here to Uber B, and let's see if we find any help over there. Well, we do. Uber B has the following: the organization's code or ID, okay, the name of the organization, etc. So I've got some help. So I want to take, and I've already got this table here. And again, this is a dimension table because it's got who, what, where, when, or why. And so I'm going to take a stab at creating a drop-down menu for that music codes, pardon me, the Uber A. I'll close this. No, I'm going to click on Uber A. I'm going to go to the design view. All right. Now I've got the org, and I'm going to click lookup, and I'm going to do a combo box. Okay. And then I've got this row source type. It's a table or a query. And then the third line, it says row source. So I'm going to click right there. And you'll see there's a drop-down menu or a little infinity box. I'll click the infinity box. And I'm going to click Uber C, and I'll add it. And I want the org. I don't want that one. Just click. I think is it Uber B that I want? Let me look at you back here for just a second. It's Uber B. I'm sorry, folks. So let's close Uber B, and we'll go back to the Uber A. Okay, and I've got my combo box, and row source is a table or query, and then the row source, click that, and I'm going to go choose Uber B, and I'm going to add it. I'll close it. Now, I'm going to click on organization, org, okay, and then organization. All right, and then I'm going to run that query. It'll give me a result set. Okay, so I've got the organization's code or ID, then the name, and I'll close this off. I'll save it, yes. And now I'm going to come down. I've got a bound column. I'm going to have two columns within the bound column. I'm going to put 2. And then the column widths, I'm going to put 1 inch, and then a semicolon and 1 inch. Well, yeah, I'll just do that. Make them uniform. So I've got the column width is 1 inch. So we've got 2 columns counts, and the column widths will be 1 inch, semicolon, 1 inch. And I'm ready to go up and take a view. I'll save the table. Now notice what we've got going on over here, okay? I'm over here in Uber A, and on the organization, now notice what I have. I have a very nice drop-down menu. Now, if I want better visual acuity, when I go back in there, I can just simply scoot this out a little bit, but you can tell I know now what code to use for what particular organization, i.e. music company. So we've created a little drop-down menu. And we'll say, yes, we've got that done. Now, let's come down and look at the queries, okay? If we work with them enough, after a while, queries we're going to be able to look at a query and kind of be able to say in English what's going on, or say like use human speak. And so we'll click on Uber A, and I'm going to open this up first of all, and this looks like I have the first name and the last name and the first name, and the music interests, their first music interest A, music interest B, and then their organization. So who are these people and what type of music interests them? And that's what I'm working with. Okay? So far, so good. Now, let's go down to the design view. All right? And I'm going to close this off here, and I will go back to the to this task 1. Let's open it up. There it is. And we'll click on the design view on it. And as we suspected, we'll edge this out a little bit. Okay. And we'll take the shutter back just a hair. And because these two tables were linked up, we were able to run this query and get this nice table. Okay? Now, let's go back to the data sheet view, and we've got their country, their city, their address, etc. And we'll close this off. And we'll go back to the navigation pane. We're going to look at the second query. And we're going to find a task 2 if there's one in here. We won't see a task 2. But let's look at task 4A. Let's open it up. And you'll notice that we're doing an intersection here. And we'll click down, and here we're combining these two with their organization. We can even go down to the SQL view, and this is called, and we're using what we call a union, where we just combine the two. Then task 4B, we can look at it in the design view. Okay. And then let's look at task 5 and open it up. And this is kind of interesting. If I remember correctly, I'll go down to the design view. Now I want you to notice something. I'm going to put the object back. Now take a look for a moment. We've got the first name, the last name, the address, the city, the state, the country. And notice something. We have the criteria of USA, and right under it, or USA. Interesting. Let's find out what's going on there, what that's all about. Okay. And as we scroll across, we're going to find their music interest A is hard rock or hip hop, and their music interest B is hard rock or hip hop. What we're after here is people in the United States, okay, whose musical interests, either A or B, are hard rock or hip hop. And let's look up at the result set. And there we are. And again, we'll go back down to the design view. What we did here was a nested query. Just like we've done nested conditional statements. We took USA and we made it the country. So the machine said, okay, USA and music interest A. All right, they've got to fit the criteria to be selected for the view or the result set or the data set. They must be for the United States, and their music interest A must be hard rock or hip hop. Okay. Then we have the OR criteria, which is like a union. It's a Boolean union. And it says, all right, we want to go back and we want to get people for the United States whose musical interest B is hip hop, is hard rock or hip hop. Okay? So we did the nested, we did a nested query there. And here's the view. And there we are. Now, I'll pop this back up for a second. I'm going to close this table off. Okay, and let's go back to home. And we'll throw that on there, and then we'll get back to the navigation pane. And we see our forms where we add a company, add a customer, the main menu. Then we've got the reports. We also have some macros, and the company name is a macro. We've also got Add the customer, that's a macro. It's recorded keystrokes, and show full mailing list, that's also macro. So we used macros underneath those objects here in Access, just like we did when we worked in Excel. All there is to it. All right, now I want to do one other thing with this, with these data, and I want to go back up to the. Let's look at task number 1. I think this is it. No. Task 4A. No. I'm sorry, folks. I want the one where we have all of their addresses, everything. That's task 5. Is that silly? There we go. All right. Now you'll notice here we have. I'm going to close the shutter on the objects, but notice we have their music interests, their country, their address, etc. This is nice to look at. It's wonderful, but we can do better. And we're going to do that. I'm going to click on the navigation pane. I'm going to click Task 5. Okay. I'm going to right-click it, and I'm going to come up and I'm going to export it to Excel. And I'm going to put it on my desktop. I'll find it over here, desktop, and I'll click Save. I'll click OK, close, and hopefully I'll find it down there. And let's see, it's going to be that little tiny, there it is. So why did we do this? Well, now that I have it in Excel, okay, I can do some things with it. I can put it into a pivot table. If I want to and I'm interested, I can also use this address data and map where our customers are. Okay? And we'll do that. And I'm going to take, we're going to say this is task 5. It's down here on my task. Now I'm going to go out on the internet and I'm going to find a very simple kind of tool for us to work with. Okay? And I'm going to use one, I think we might have used this before, but maybe not. It's called Easy Map Maker. I think that's what the thing is called. Yep, create a map. Easily map multiple locations from Excel data. Okay? I'm going to click on here. And it's say click here to paste data. So it's going to have me, I'm going to copy my data and then paste it in there. So I'm going to click copy. Well, I'm going to open the file up, pardon me, open the file up. Okay? And I'm going to copy everything. I'm going to get the zip codes. I'm going to leave the music interests alone. No, I'll go ahead and include the music interests. Let's just do that. I'm going to click copy. And then I'm going to go back up here. And I'm ready to make my map. I'm going to click it here to paste your data. I'm going to paste my data, and then I'm going to click Make Map. Let's see what we get. Now, this is just a real crude little tool that's out here, a freebie, okay? We don't have that many records or customers, but this is not bad for free. In fact, it's pretty nice, and this is nothing more than a map. It's a database, and we've populated it, okay? And let's look at this. Now we can put it into some perspective. Excuse me, I'm going to click here. Okay. We have 2 people here. 2 entries here for him. Because he's got these, we're looking at the 2 interests. And we probably should have put this into a comma separated file. And this is the one where we limited everybody to the United States. But you can see we can easily take that data, export it, and create a map so we have a visualization of it. Now, this isn't that impressive when you've got, you know, these 4 or 5 entries, and this is from the one where we did the music interests in the United States. But if you've got 500 of these or 1,000 of these, then you can start to see a pattern. Even with this, there's a pattern here. And what the pattern is, as you see, we have a lot of people in the eastern seaboard. We have a lot of folks concentrated up here in the New York and in the Midwest and in the New York Island, in the New York area. And we got one out here in California. Okay. Well, I'm going to close that off. I think we pretty much covered fairly well what we wanted to do. Now, again, in the Lambert text, so we'll go back up to the Lambert text. In chapter 12, I'll go over here to chapter 12 and protect the database. This walks you through the process of assigning passwords, splitting a database, performance analysis, etc. And they'll explain why in the world would you, why would you split a database? Well, this is when you get into sharing a database, so where you have front end and back end applications. The back end application being the one where you input data, and the front end application being the one where you put it on, say, a computer network, and people come and work on it. About all there is to it. Beyond that, it gets beyond, more than that gets beyond the course. 13, maintenance issues with databases. It would be good for you to browse those and take a look at them. Okay? So, I think at this stage of the game, we've worked on this case. We've looked at we've run a nested query. We took some data, we exported it over into Excel, and then visualized it. We put it into a map. We created a lookup table. Pardon me. We created drop-down menus for our table to protect data integrity and to make it just easier for input. Okay. So we've come a little bit, edged a little bit further in a little bit more advanced work. We've looked at tables. We've connected 2 tables. We've seen the 3 ways tables can be connected. Either an inner join, that was number 1. The second one is where I have everything in table A and what matches in B. Or the third one, which is a right outer join, where I have everything that's in table B and matches table A. It just depends on what the information I'm after. Usually, we want to match them up using an intersection. And we saw that, and that was pretty much what we did with this case. And then the gardens, and we also saw a kind of a primitive dashboard. And I'll open up Garden Company number 12 for a minute. We'll look at it. And again, it's one of these where we'll enable the content, and we want to save it. Okay. And I'm going to save it over here on my desktop. The reason I don't dwell too much on these is for the simple reason you have a text to walk you through each one of these steps. Oh, they're not going to let me do. I'm going to have to change this to. I'm call it 1. Pardon me. That'll let me do it then. There it is. And here we have a home page, just like we did the Uber Audio, where we can do tasks that we want, and this is customized, etc. Okay. Then we'll look at 3. Garden Company 3. Open it up. 13. Excuse me. And I'll call that 13.1. I'll enable the content. And here we have some tables. We do some queries, some customer orders. We do some deletions. This is an update query. You want to take a look at it. And we'll go into the design view of it. Okay. And we're going to find anything that's marked as a yes is a discontinued product. Some other kinds of just maintenance things that they have you do. And again, chapter 13 will give you print screens, verbiage that will walk you through each of those tasks. Okay? All right, the one thing we didn't do before I go is we didn't split the database. So let's take a look at this. I'm going to go to database tools. I don't do this very much, but I think we might be able to do it. Let me see here. Click on create more SharePoint list. I just don't do much in terms of table splitting. Oh, service. I'm gonna have to go back in and take a look at this and find out how to do it, and then I'll put it. Yeah, they'll walk you through it too. I just don't mess with it enough to. Maybe it's under create. And I'll find it. Okay, folks, that'll do it. Appreciate your time, and you have a good one.